Welcome back to another episode of Thoughts from John. As I told you guys earlier, we're always going to be doing something different, whether it's dog training, reviewing our products, or even now talking about cooking, a little bit of smoking. Today we got a pork shoulder. We've already marinated it in any type of citrus. We used Sunny D for 2 days with some Montreal steak seasoning in one of our buckets here. So 2 days of sitting in there in the refrigerator with some, again, Montreal steak seasoning, some Sunny D. Let that marinate for 2 days, and then we'll go ahead and put a rub on it. Let it sit for 12 hours. Keep it at room temperature, and then we'll go ahead and throw it on the smoker. All right, so we're ready to pull our pork shoulder out. We're going to go ahead and put it on a tinfoil pan here and get ready to create a rub. Alright, we'll go ahead and create that rub, throw it on here, and we'll let it sit for 12 hours, basically overnight, and then we'll get it smoking in the morning. Alright, we got our pork shoulder sitting here. Let's go ahead and make our rub that we're going to go ahead and throw it on. So we're going to go ahead and use some Montreal steak seasoning again. Again, it's probably about a, 6 to 8 pound pork shoulder here, so we're going to eyeball this on how much we're going to put in. So again, Montreal steak seasoning. Put a good amount of this because we want to make sure we get the top, the bottom, and all sides of our pork shoulder. Next, we're going to use some regular paprika. This is really going to give it that color that we're looking for. Throw some of that on. Next, we're going to use some brown sugar, or excuse me, some cinnamon. Don't get too carried away with the cinnamon. It'll bring out a lot of flavor. So just a little bit of that cinnamon. There we go. Next, we'll use that brown sugar. Again, don't get carried away with the brown sugar either, as it'll bring out a lot of taste, and it could overdo it and take the taste that you're not looking for. And then last, we'll put some chili pepper on. Again, if you like your food a little spicy, a little bit more than regular. I'm not going to do it for the spicy side, even though I love the spicy stuff, but it's going to be for other people too. So we'll go ahead and throw some of that on. And then we'll just mix it up. Okay, now that we have our rub all mixed up and put in a bowl, we'll go ahead and throw it on. The key thing here is you want to get your rub on the top, on the bottom, and the sides in all areas. Sometimes some people think I overdo the rub, and I probably do. To me, it just gives it that better taste, but sometimes too much taste is a little bit of overwhelming. So we got that fat side taken care of. Make sure you get the inside or the sides, all four walls there. You don't want to miss out on those areas. And again, just a quick rub, throw it on there, and we'll flip it over. Alright, we'll get that top side. Get that on there. We'll just pat it in. So what we're going to do is, after we're done putting this rub on, is we're going to put some saran wrap on top of it. I'm not going to put it in the refrigerator. I'm going to leave it out tonight. Temperature is about 50 degrees outside throughout the evening, so it's not going to be too bad sitting out. We'll let it sit till the morning time, and then we'll go ahead and throw it on the smoker. Alright, we got the saran wrap on. We're going to let this sit overnight. 12 hours is the ideal goal, and then we'll go ahead and throw the smoker on and get it on the smoker. Alright, so we got our pork shoulder. We've been letting it sit overnight for 12 hours. We're going to put it in the Treager. We let our Treager run for about 5-10 minutes on the smoke mode, letting it smoke up, and then we turned it to the 225. We're going to put our pork shoulder in at 225 for 2 hours, and then we're going to put it back into a pan here and let it sit at 250 anywhere from 6 to 8 hours. We want the internal temperature to be about 190 degrees. What I decided to do is do fat side up, fat side down. A lot of people out there do it either way. Some people don't find a difference. I find that when I do fat side down, I get a little bit more charred and more bark on the pork shoulder itself. If you start noticing that it's getting too dark and too charred, you can go ahead and put a foil over it once you get to the 250 mark. Alright, we let our Treager warm up to about 225 for about 10 minutes now. We're going to go ahead and put our pork shoulder in. Again, we'll let it sit for 2 hours at the 225 mark, and then we'll raise it up to 250 and put it in that tin foil. If it starts to get too charred, then we'll put some oil on top of it. So let's go ahead and do that now. So as you can see, we have our fat side down. Go ahead and throw her on there. And then we'll let her sit for 2 hours and we'll check on it periodically. Alright, so it's been 2 hours now that we've been on 225. Now what we want to do is take it out. We're going to put it in a little foil pan and we'll crank the heat up to 250 and we're going to let that go anywhere from 6 to 8 hours. Again, if we start getting a lot of bark or charcoal on the shoulder, then we want to throw some foil over it and let it continue. While I do this, I want to talk a little bit about the fat side. So some people really look forward to putting the fat side on the bottom, some people on the top. I just want to give my opinion. I put the fat side on the bottom. What it does is it gives a little bit of a heat shield to the pork shoulder itself. Some people like to put the fat on the top to allow the fat to drip down. My belief is that within the pork shoulder there is a lot of fat in the pork shoulder already, so it doesn't need that fat all the way down. And then the third option, some people just cut the fat completely off. I recommend putting the fat on the bottom side to keep it as that heat shield. The only downside to that is you do get a darker pork shoulder on the top, but again, you could just throw some foil over your pan here while that occurs. So let's go ahead and throw this in the pan. So again, it's been 2 hours now. We put it in our pan and we're going to go ahead and crank the heat up to 250 degrees and we'll let it cook anywhere from 6 to 8 hours. Here we are at the 250 mark. The pork shoulder's been in the Treager for 2 hours now. Just wanted to give you guys a quick look at what it's looking like. And we'll continue to allow it to cook again for anywhere from 6 to 8 hours. Okay, we're at the 3 hour mark at 250 degrees. We'll continue to let it cook for another 3 more hours and we're looking for 190 degrees internal temp. Okay, back at you. We're 4 hours into the cook. Let's take a peek. I think it's looking real good. I think we'll leave the foil off for now and we'll come back at the 5 hour mark. Remember, we don't need to put a prong in it to identify if it's 190 inside yet. We still got 2 more hours to cook, so we'll check it in a little bit. We're at the 5 hour mark. I went ahead and put the prong in. Let's take a look at it. Still looking really good. I'm going to keep the foil off. I like the char that it's doing. We'll check out where we're at on the 5 hour mark. We're at 172 and remember we're looking for 190. Okay, we're at the 6 hour mark. Let's check out what the prong is showing. We're at 178, we're shooting for 190, so it looks like we're going to go a little bit further in 6 hours. Let's see how the pork's looking. Still looking really good. So we'll let her cook another hour or so, and we'll come back and check on her and try to achieve that 190 mark. Okay, we hit the 6.5 hour mark and we hit the 190 on the probe. Let's take a look inside. Looking beautiful. One thing I want to note is when you put the probe in or prong in, you definitely want to make sure you're not hitting the bone because that's going to give a false reading if you're hitting the bone. Okay, we went ahead and took the pork shoulder out. We drained the juice into a little funnel area, which you see here, which we'll be able to spread on once we pull the pulled pork apart. But here's the pulled pork. We're going to go ahead and wrap it in some foil, let it sit for about 20 minutes and rest. And then we'll go ahead and pull it apart. Alright, well, we let the pork shoulder rest for 20 minutes now, so let's unwrap it and see what it looks like. She looks great here. I got my 2 little claws. What we want to do is take the pork apart as much as possible, trying to avoid as much fat and being able to put it on your plate. There is a bone inside there, so let's pull it apart and see what we got. It's coming right apart. Bone's right in there. I'll grab that out. Let's give it a little taste. She is perfect. What I want to show here is the majority of the fat just stayed at the bottom of the pan. That way the fat stayed here, it did the heat protecting, and this is why that I use the fat on the bottom versus on the top. Okay, here's the pulled pork, all pulled apart. Just came really easily apart with your fingers. Pulled the bone right out, and here's the final touch. Alright, let's go back to the beginning. We grabbed a nice pork shoulder, we put it in a bucket with some Sunny D and some Montreal steak seasoning. We let that marinate for 2 days in the refrigerator. Then we pulled it out and we created a nice rub with some Montreal steak seasoning, some paprika, some cinnamon, some brown sugar, and a little bit of cayenne pepper. Put that nice little rub on it. We let that sit for 12 hours overnight. Woke up in the morning, turned that Treager on to 225. Put the pork shoulder in, let it sit for 2 hours. Then we cranked that up to 250. We put our pork shoulder into a pan, let it sit in there for 6 hours, 6 to 8 hours. Ours ended up taking 6.5 hours, and we got it to the internal temperature of 190 degrees. Pulled that out, put some foil over the pork shoulder, let that rest for 20 minutes, and then we opened that up and we're able to pull that pork shoulder apart. Now here's our final look at our pork shoulder. One delicious meal, definitely something you need to try. Thanks again for watching our channel. Please subscribe as we continue to throw out some fun and cool videos. We really appreciate all your support. Thanks a lot and create yourself a great day.